You wake up every morning, and before you even open your eyes, something is already wrong. There's this low-level hum in your chest, like an alarm that never fully goes off. You go through your day. You do your job. You talk to people. You smile when you're supposed to smile. But underneath all of that, you feel like you're just getting through it. Not living, just surviving. And here's the part nobody talks about. You can be surviving even when your life looks perfectly fine from the outside. You can have food, a roof over your head, people who love you, and still feel like you're trapped. Still feel like you're running from something you can't even name. If that sounds familiar, this video is for you, because today we're going to use the ideas of one of the most brilliant minds in the history of psychology, Carl Gustav Jung, to explain exactly what's happening inside you, why you're stuck in survival mode, and most importantly, how to finally get out. Stay with me. This one might change the way you see yourself forever. Before we bring Jung in, let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. When most people hear survival mode, they think of someone running from a lion on the African savanna or a soldier in a war zone. But survival mode in the modern world? It's much quieter and much more common. Here's what survival mode actually looks like in everyday life. You're always waiting for the next bad thing to happen. You feel exhausted, even after sleeping. You struggle to enjoy things, even things you used to love. You're constantly in your head, replaying old conversations, old mistakes, old wounds. You feel like you can never truly relax, like letting your guard down would be dangerous somehow. Sound familiar? This is your nervous system on high alert. Your brain, specifically the oldest, most primitive part of your brain, what scientists call the amygdala, has decided that the world is not safe. And once it decides that, everything gets filtered through that lens. Now, here's where Jung comes in. Jung said something that most psychologists of his time weren't brave enough to say. He said that the real cause of most human suffering is not what happened to us. It's the parts of ourselves we've been forced to hide. Let me say that again, because it's important. The parts of ourselves we've been forced to hide. He called these hidden parts the shadow. And understanding your shadow, that's step one to escaping survival mode. Imagine a young child, maybe 5, 6 years old, full of energy, full of curiosity, maybe a little loud, maybe a little angry sometimes, maybe very emotional or very needy or very silly. And then the adults around that child start sending messages. Stop crying. You're too sensitive. Don't be so dramatic. Boys don't cry. Good girls don't get angry. You need to be more responsible. Stop playing around. Nobody likes a show-off. Now, the child doesn't have the ability to say, "That's an interesting perspective, but I respectfully disagree." The child just learns. And what they learn is, certain parts of me are not acceptable. So what happens to those parts? They don't disappear. They can't. They're you. They go underground. They get buried. They become what Jung called the shadow, the hidden, rejected, unconscious side of the self. And here's the cruel irony. The parts you've buried the deepest are the ones that end up controlling you the most, because they never went away. They're still in there, pushing, pressing, leaking out in ways you don't even realize. In your anxiety, your anger, your self-sabotage, your fear of intimacy, your need to please everyone, your inability to say no. This is survival mode at its deepest level. You're not just surviving the world outside, you are surviving yourself. You've spent so long managing, controlling, and hiding these buried parts that your entire nervous system has been stuck in protection mode. You're not living your life. You're guarding it. And here's the devastating part. You don't even know you're doing it. That's the nature of the unconscious. It operates below awareness, below words, below logic. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Read that again. Let it sink in. Now I want to give you the full picture of how survival mode actually gets installed in a person, because understanding the how is the beginning of the way out. Jung believed that the human psyche is built in layers. At the surface, your persona, the mask you wear for the world, the version of yourself that goes to work, attends family dinners, laughs at the right moments. Beneath that, the ego, your sense of who you are, your name, your identity, your story about yourself. And beneath that, the vast, dark, largely unknown territory of the unconscious, where the shadow lives, where your deepest fears and your deepest gifts are stored together, side by side, waiting. Here's what happens when life is unsafe. Whether that's a chaotic home, a critical parent, bullying, trauma, chronic stress, or just a world that never made you feel quite good enough. Your ego, your conscious self, starts working overtime to protect you. It builds walls. It creates rules. Don't show weakness. Don't need too much. Stay small. Stay safe. Don't trust people. Don't get too hopeful. Hope gets crushed. These become the operating instructions for your life. And most of them were written before you were 10 years old. And here's the key thing. These rules worked. At some point, they kept you safe. The child who learned to go quiet when a parent was angry. Smart adaptation. The kid who learned to be the class clown to deflect from pain at home. Smart adaptation. But you are no longer that child. And those rules, they are now the walls of your prison. The hypervigilance that protected you then is the anxiety that's exhausting you now. The emotional shutdown that helped you survive then is the numbness that's stealing your joy now. The people-pleasing that kept the peace then is the self-betrayal that's keeping you up at night now. Survival mode doesn't know the danger has passed. It never got the memo. It's still running the old program, playing the old tape, fighting a war that ended decades ago. Let me give you some very specific signs that you're still living in Jungian survival mode, because some of these might surprise you. Number 1, you can't be still. Silence makes you uncomfortable. The moment you stop being busy, anxiety floods in. You reach for your phone. You turn on the TV. You find something to do, anything, because sitting with yourself feels dangerous. Jung called this fleeing the unconscious. You're running from your own inner world. Number 2, you're a chronic people pleaser. You have almost no idea what you want because your entire life has been organized around what others need from you. You say yes when you mean no. You apologize for existing. You feel responsible for everyone else's emotions except your own. This is a survival strategy. It means somewhere along the line, your needs being visible was dangerous. Number 3, you're stuck in your head. You overthink everything. You replay conversations. You prepare for every possible disaster. You're so busy managing the future and processing the past that you are almost never actually here, in the present. Your mind is a war room, not a home. Number 4, intimacy feels terrifying. Not necessarily in a way you can articulate, but you notice, just when things get close, something in you pulls back. You pick fights. You go cold. You find reasons to leave before you can be left. Jung would say, the shadow contains your deep wound around connection, and getting close threatens to expose it. Number 5, you self-sabotage. You get close to something good, a relationship, an opportunity, a breakthrough, and then you blow it up. You might not even know why. This is one of the most painful forms of survival mode. Your unconscious, trying to protect you from hope, keeps pulling you back to what's familiar, even if familiar is suffering. Number 6, you feel chronically unworthy. No matter what you achieve, it's never enough. The praise doesn't land. The success feels hollow. There's a voice in the back of your head that says, you don't deserve this. That voice, that's not the truth. That's the shadow talking. That's the accumulated wounds of years of being told, directly or indirectly, that you are not enough. Now we get to the most important part. How do you actually escape? Jung's answer was a process he called individuation. And before your eyes glaze over at that word, let me tell you what it actually means in plain language. Individuation means becoming who you actually are, not who your parents needed you to be, not who your culture told you to be, not the persona you built to survive, but your real self, the whole self, shadow included. And here's the beautiful counterintuitive truth at the heart of everything Jung believed. The way out is not to escape your darkness. The way out is to face it, not to wallow in it, not to be consumed by it, but to look at it, to own it, to integrate it. Because every single part of you that you've rejected contains energy, contains a gift, contains a piece of your aliveness. The anger you were told was wrong, it contains your strength, your sense of justice, your ability to protect yourself, the sadness you learned to suppress. It contains your depth, your empathy, your capacity for real connection, the ambition you were shamed for. It contains your drive, your creativity, your purpose. The shadow is not your enemy. The shadow is the part of you that's been waiting to come home. The shadow is not your enemy. The shadow is the part of you that's been waiting to come home. So how do we actually do this? Let me walk you through the steps. Jung made a fascinating observation about human behavior. He noticed that the things that bother us most about other people, the things that make us furious or disgusted or deeply uncomfortable, are almost always reflections of our own shadow. He called this projection. We take the parts of ourselves we've buried, the parts we've judged as unacceptable, and we see them in other people. We attack them out there, in others, because we can't stand to see them in here, in ourselves. So here's your first exercise. Think about a person who really irritates you. Maybe it's someone arrogant. Maybe it's someone who's always playing the victim. Maybe it's someone selfish or lazy or desperate for attention. Now ask yourself, and be honest, is there any version of that quality inside me? Not necessarily in the same way, not necessarily to the same degree, but is it there? Because if something triggers a strong reaction in you, if it doesn't just annoy you, but genuinely gets under your skin, that's usually the shadow waving at you, saying, hey, look here, this is not about self-blame. This is about reclaiming your projections. Every quality you've been projecting onto someone else is a quality that belongs to you. And when you take it back, you get a piece of your energy back with it. I want to ask you something, and I want you to take it seriously. Think about the most protected, most defended part of you, the part that never fully relaxes, the part that's always scanning, always bracing, always waiting for something to go wrong. How old does that part feel? Not how old you are. How old does that part feel? For most people, if they're honest, it feels very young, because it is young. It was formed young. Jung understood this. He identified what he called the wounded child archetype, the part of the psyche that got frozen in time at the moment of the original hurt. And here's what's critical to understand. That frozen child is not a metaphor. It's a real active part of your psychology. Neuroscience now confirms what Jung intuited. Early emotional experiences get encoded in the nervous system and continue to run like background software long after the original threat is gone. That wounded child inside you is still making decisions, still protecting you from dangers that no longer exist, still holding the old pain, the old shame, the old belief that you are not safe or not enough. And here is the devastating truth. Most people spend their entire lives managing that child instead of healing them. The way you heal them is direct. You go back. You show up. You become the adult that child never had. Here's how. And I'm going to ask you to actually try this, not just listen to it. Think of a time you felt truly small, truly scared, truly alone. Maybe you were 8 years old, maybe younger. Don't analyze it. Just feel into it. Now picture that child clearly. See their face. See how they're carrying the weight of something they never should have had to carry alone. And now, as the adult you are today, I want you to walk toward them in your mind. Sit down next to them and say, out loud if you can, or silently if you must, I see you. I know how hard this has been. You didn't deserve this. And I want you to know you are not alone anymore. I've got you now. Something will shift when you do that. It might be subtle. It might bring up something unexpected, but your nervous system is listening. Because that's the conversation it has been waiting for. The goal is not to live in the past. The goal is to send a message to the past, to let that young, wounded part of you finally know that the danger has passed, that the adult has arrived, that it's safe to come out now. Here's the question that is at the core of everything Jung was trying to say. Who are you when you're not surviving? Not who you are when you're trying to please someone. Not who you are when you're protecting yourself. Not who you are when you're performing for the world. Who are you? Most people, if they're honest, don't fully know because they've been so busy managing themselves, managing others, managing the world. They've never had the space to find out. This is what Jung meant by individuation. It's the great project of the second half of life, or if you're lucky and do this work early, the great project of your life, to shed what is not authentically you and discover and live what is. And this requires courage. Real courage, the courage to disappoint people who were counting on you to stay small, the courage to feel things you've been numbing for years, the courage to need things you were taught you shouldn't need, the courage to take up space, to have a voice, to want things, to be fully and unapologetically you. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not a privilege in the sense of luxury, a privilege in the sense of a profound, rare, hard-won gift, something most people never claim, but it's yours. It's waiting for you." Okay, let's bring this all together into real, practical steps you can take, starting today. Step 1, journal every morning, but not the way you think. Don't just write about your day. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now in my body? Not your thoughts, your body. Tightness in the chest, heaviness in the stomach. Your body is keeping score. It's telling you what your mind is avoiding. Then ask, what am I afraid of right now? And where did I first learn to be afraid of that? You don't need to answer perfectly. You just need to start asking. Step 2. Practice sitting with discomfort. Survival mode is, at its core, a panic response to uncomfortable feelings. So one of the most powerful things you can do is practice, deliberately, consciously, not running from discomfort. Next time anxiety comes up, don't immediately reach for your phone. Sit with it for 60 seconds. Just 60 seconds. Notice where you feel it in your body. Breathe into it. Don't fight it. Don't analyze it. Just be with it. You're teaching your nervous system that feelings are not fatal. Step 3. Practice saying what you actually think. Once a day, when in a low-stakes situation, say what you actually think, even if it's slightly uncomfortable. Decline something you'd normally say yes to. Express a preference you'd normally suppress. This is how you start rebuilding your authentic self, one small, honest moment at a time. Step 4. Find a therapist or a Jungian-informed guide. I'll be honest with you, this work is deep. Some of it you can do alone, but a lot of it, especially if you've experienced significant trauma or adverse childhood experiences, is safer and more effective with a skilled guide. There's no weakness in asking for help. There's no weakness in saying, I've been carrying this alone long enough. In fact, that might be one of the most courageous things you ever do. Step 5. Be patient with yourself. This isn't a 10-day program. This is a life's work. And that's actually beautiful because it means that every single day you get another chance to know yourself a little better, to reclaim another piece of yourself, to live a little more freely. Jung did not promise an easy journey. He promised a meaningful one. Let me close with this. You have been surviving for a long time, and that survival, however painful it's been, it kept you here. It got you to this moment, and there is something in you that clearly wants more than just getting by, or you wouldn't have watched this far. That wanting, that is not weakness. That is the call of your authentic self. Jung believed that within every human being, beneath all the fear and the armor and the wounds, there is something he called the self. A deeper, wiser, more whole version of who you are. Something that knows, even when you don't, that you are meant for more than survival. That self is not waiting to be created. It is waiting to be uncovered. And every time you choose honesty over performance, every time you sit with discomfort instead of running, every time you say, I feel this instead of I'm fine, every time you choose you uncover a little more. Now I want you to understand something bigger about why this work matters. We live in a world that is designed almost perfectly to keep you in survival mode. Constant news feeding your fear, social media feeding your insecurity, a culture that tells you you're only as valuable as what you produce. These are not accidents. A distracted, anxious, self-doubting population is an easy one to control. Carl Jung saw this coming. Writing in the early 1900s, watching Europe tear itself apart, he said something that was almost radical at the time. The outer crises of the world are reflections of the inner crises of individuals. In other words, the chaos out there begins in here, in the unexamined wounds of ordinary people who never got the chance, or the courage, to look inward. And the inverse is also true. When individuals do this work, when they face their shadow, reclaim their projections, heal their inner child, and step into their authentic self, the world around them quietly begins to change. Their relationships deepen, their choices clarify. The people around them feel it. The work of escaping survival mode is not selfish. It is the most important contribution you can make to your relationships, to your children, to everyone who comes into contact with you. You don't have to figure it all out today. You don't have to be healed by Friday. You just have to take one step, one honest, courageous step toward yourself, and then another. That's how you escape survival mode. That's how you finally start living. Carl Jung didn't promise it would be easy. He promised it would be worth it. I'll see you in the next one.